Greetings for those of you watching. For this piece, I'll be talking to you about the infamous bushranger known as Jimmy Governor. I'll give you a short backstory about the Australian criminal icon, as well as analysing media coverage throughout and post his 14-week rampage fueled by anger and vengeance. Jimmy Governor, born in 1875, was an Aboriginal man of mixed race, convicted of murders of a total of 9 women and children, the maiming of numerous others, and the rape of a teenage girl. Many are said to believe if Jimmy had not been of mixed race, he wouldn't have the chance to stand trial. But let's not get into that. Jimmy Governor was an honest worker who was intent on showing his worth towards a predominantly white community. In his early years, he had become a police tracker at Cassels from 15th of July 1896 to 18th of December the following year. He then married Ethel Mary Jane Page, a 16-year-old white woman. The marriage back then had been considered a taboo at the time and was frowned upon by the white settlers. Ethel and Governor were outcasts, alienated, ostracized from the community. After a string of jobs, Jimmy landed a fencing contract, primarily erecting and splitting posts, and is employed by the Morby family. During the completion of the contract, Jimmy had been reunited with a small group of his relatives who had joined Jimmy in hopes of providing for themselves and their loved ones. A hard and determined worker, Jimmy was eager to prove himself against the predominantly white community that he wasn't just an Aboriginal, but a hard-working countryman. Despite his work ethic, Jimmy had been underpaid, ridiculed, and discriminated against due to his part Aboriginal heritage. It was this constant abuse against Ethel and Jimmy that had triggered him into a vendetta against society. In the Evening News article written on the 29th of October 1900, the author doesn't take much time to take a stab at Jimmy. Jimmy Governor, at last, after 115 days of desperate strategy, been shot and captured by a member of one of the many parties of civilians out in pursuit of him and his brother. The author seems to incite a sense of relief that the infamous bushranger has been caught, proposing that the first step of justice is now underway. Although the initial trial hasn't commenced yet, it can be seen that the author is immediately denouncing Jimmy of the crimes he had committed on his spree. While feeling horror at the half-caste crimes, the author is quick to inform the reader of his part Aboriginal heritage. As you may know, the time of 1900s, Aboriginal were not seen as equals to white settlers. With racism rampant at this point in time, the author ensures that the reader feels that the Aboriginal heritage was to blame for Jimmy's violent behavior. In comparison to this, the Grenfell Record and Lachlan District Advertiser coverage of the article presents a less hostile reporting method regarding the capture of Jimmy Governor, with the article more interested in providing details of how Jimmy was caught as opposed to what race he was. It was surprising that the author did not once mention the heritage or appearance of Jimmy, but instead the lead up to his capture. The article's level of description turns the article into more of a story, providing statements and adjectives to create a sense of imagery that thus inciting the reader to relive the moment of his capture. An example of this is Jimmy Governor partly turned over, as if awakening, and called on him to surrender. Jimmy sprung up like a kangaroo, snatched up his rifle, and bounded away. It is this imagery that signifies the amount of detail the author had captured in this particular article. The capture of Jimmy Governor had caused a lot of scrutiny against the New South Wales Police Force, with articles stating that the disorganisation and indolent efforts were the counterpart in the numerous escapes of Jimmy Governor and his lengthy pursuit. The Coolgardie Miner, it's an article, were quick to criticise the police force, saying that it was they that had given him strength and had allowed him to be christened as a hero. The article also proposed a hypothetical scenario suggesting that if Jimmy had been caught red-handed or immediately after the murder of Mrs. Morvay, he would have passed to the scaffold unwatched except by his gaolers, implying that the policemen are at fault for the murders and violent crimes against his victims, that he would have been locked up instead of facing the death penalty, that some of his victims would still be alive. The newspaper article was seen to be thanking the civilians who had captured Jimmy and glorifying them, as you can see in this image, taking a jab to the local and national authorities for their indolent efforts in capturing Jimmy Governor. In the capture of Jimmy Governor, there had been a lot of buzz regarding the trial. Before the trial, there had been a lot of talk regarding the reasoning behind Governor's crime rampage. The Sunday Times has a lengthy article that articulates the murders, again drawing upon the race of Jimmy Governor. The article begins by denouncing Jimmy, saying that his actions were coward-like, without warning. While the father was out at another house, Jimmy and another black fellow tomahawked and beat to death Mrs. Morboy, Grace Morboy, Hilda, and Percy Morboy. This may imply that Jimmy didn't have the decency to perform the murders, while the quote-unquote man at the house was not home, bringing upon like a sexist edge to the article. In an opposing article written by the Cootamundra Herald, the piece has a more unbiased nature, with no mention of Jimmy's race. The article also provides a long statement stating the reasoning behind his crimes, spoken by Jimmy himself. It had been said, as in Jimmy had been provoked by Mrs. Morboy and Miss Kurtz after a verbal confrontation regarding the treatment of Ethel, his wife. It was that then Jimmy had been enraged and struck Mrs. Morboy with his non-noller and hit Miss Kurtz on the jaw with his hand. It was after 10 minutes of deliberation in the court case, Jimmy Governor had been sentenced to death. The result was not surprising due to the degree of Governor's crimes and his Aboriginal heritage. The Queanbeyan Age states that the full court had rejected Governor's appeal, who had argued that since he had been adjudged an outlaw, he had therefore had been convicted. Thus, all he had could not be placed on trial for an offence on which he could stood convicted. This particular article, compared to articles I've read, actually states the legal proceedings regarding the case as opposed to his backstory. The article further includes the reasoning behind the rejection of Governor's appeal and justifications for said punishment with reference to the Felons Apprehension Act. Thus, the decision was upheld and he was hung on Friday, the 18th of January, 1901. Alright, that's enough of Jimmy Governor. Newspaper articles, from what I've read during the period of 1900s, I seem to have a more coherent writing style compared to newspaper articles that are shown in this current generation in terms of information that the reader has gained, with articles providing a great amount of detail about the case itself, articulating any facts of the case such as offender backstories, reasoning for the crime, and their own conclusion or judgment of the case. Compared to the writing style in this current generation where newspaper articles seem to have a more generic writing style with a brief summary of the murder case and a couple of illustrations. Articles seem to be more contemporary, short, sweet, and get to the point, as you will. With articles in this current time not taking up more than half a page. This may be due to technology providing the same sort of story but in a more visual way, such as television broadcasts, documentaries, and the radio. As society progresses and the years go on, media coverage will change to help suit current standards. Thus, like remarks on race and public and journalist beliefs are inexistent in today's media coverage. I think that's all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and thank you for watching.